go on with these huge numbers of people coming into our country. And what's happened? The numbers have trebled. They've trebled. Think of it. Net migration is running at 750,000 people every year. In the last 2 years, 2.5 million new people have come to our country. Think of it. 1 in 30 people in this country today has come in the last 2 years. So the first reason was a betrayal of Brexit. The second reason I've come back out of retirement is because I genuinely believe that Britain is broken and that Britain needs reform. Nothing works anymore. How are you getting on, folks, for GP appointments? What chance? Well, I tell you what, dentist is even worse. How are you getting on if you've got kids or grandkids that want to rent a property? They'll find a massive chunk of their money disappearing in rent. How are we getting on if people want to buy a house? Well, it's very difficult, isn't it? House prices have gone through the roof. And think about this. We need to build a new home, one new home, every 2 minutes in this country just to cope with legal net migration. It's unbelievable. It's impossible. But some good news for you. This will cheer you up no end. Only 800 young men crossed the English Channel today. 800. 800 today have crossed the English Channel. Nearly all young men who throw their iPhones and their passports into the sea. And this isn't just about the £8 million a day it costs to put them in hotels or private accommodation. This is actually, I believe, a national security crisis. We have no idea. No idea. No idea who these people are. No idea what harm they could cause us. And when ISIS said in 2015 they would use the Mediterranean route to flood Europe with their operatives, I suggest when they say something like it, we should do something about it. So I feel we're broken. I feel nothing works. And I believe today that the biggest single problem this country faces is the population explosion. Think of the numbers. Now, Tony Blair started it, of course. Tony Blair, I'm sure, an enormously popular figure with this audience. Blair started it, and during the Blair years, net migration was 2.7 million people. But it's okay, because in 2010, we got a new Prime Minister. Call me Dave. Not wearing a tie, super cool. And he promised in his manifesto that net migration would be reduced to tens of thousands a year. And then in 2015, he promised in that manifesto that net migration would be reduced to tens of thousands a year. And in 2017, the even more useless Theresa May promised net migration would be reduced to tens of thousands a year. And then in 2019, Boris Johnson was elected, saying there would be a big decrease in unskilled labour coming into Britain. Since the Conservatives came to power, net 4.3 million people have come into this country. It's getting on for double what the Labour Party did, and we can't cope. And is there any solution to it? Well, guess what Rishi's saying now? Vote for us and we'll reduce immigration numbers. Folks, I don't believe a single word that slippery Sunak says, and nor, I suggest, should you. So the Conservatives are done. I'm told, Nigel, you're going to wreck the Conservative Party's chances. Well, they don't need any help from me. They've done it to themselves already. So it looks like we're going to have a big Labour majority. Well, come on. I mean, be fair. Keir Starmer, I mean, he's a man of enormous wit and personality, isn't he? No, he's one of the most boring people we've ever seen in public life. But how interesting. He launched his manifesto last week with 6 key priorities for the country. And guess what? Not one of those 6 was dealing with net migration. Not one of those 6 was dealing with the small boats. Labour are totally unconcerned about the impact of this on the lives of ordinary people. And I put it to you that our quality of life has diminished for every single one of us as a result of this population explosion. And that is not, I'm not saying that those that come are bad or anything like that. The vast majority that come are very good people. We just can't cope with these numbers, and the time has come, and I've come back into politics to stand up and say, on this and many other issues, you are ignoring the will of the people. You are ignoring the silent majority, and the time has come to stand up and say, enough is enough. Now it's over 25 years ago that myself and a friend from Frinton, Geoffrey Titford, were elected to the European Parliament. We were the first UKIP MEPs. And we were a very small party. And everyone said, you'll never succeed in your dream of leaving the European Union. And everyone was against us. The Conservative Party, the Labour Party, the Lib Dems, the trade unions, big businesses, the BBC. By the way, how does our policy go down with you that we think we should abolish the BBC licence fee? I thought that one might work somehow. And yet we achieved our goal. And it's the same with this. I was in Skegness 3 weeks ago, and I'd said that I wouldn't stand in the election, though I realised that Brexit had frankly been betrayed by the Tories, and that Labour in government will probably take us back closer to the European Union. And whilst I recognised that Britain was broken and suffering, I decided that a snap election was something that just didn't give me the time I needed to fight a constituency, to go around the country, to raise money, to do all the things I needed to do. I took a rational decision that it was all just going to be too difficult. There wasn't enough time. And there I was in Skegness, walking along the front, being mobbed by people. It's funny, when you go into the jungle on I'm a Celebrity, a lot of young people seem to like you. I mean, they really do. So, by the way, what an experience that was. I mean, 24 days I was in there. No tea, no coffee, no sugar, no salt, no pepper, no news, no beer. That was the worst of it. It was the best detox I probably ever had. Anyway, there I am, going along the front of Skegness. There were loads of kids coming up wanting selfies and all the rest of it. But a lot of people stopping me saying, Nigel, why are you not running? And I began, over the course of that day, to start to feel bad, to start to feel guilty. And it carried on the next day in Nottinghamshire. People coming up, looking me in the eye, saying, we've supported you for years, why are you not running? And I began to think overnight, you know, I was the head of a people's army in UKIP, a people's army in the referendum campaign, a people's army with the Brexit Party in 2019. You know, I was the head of a movement with millions and millions of supporters. And with that support, we've changed the course of British history. And I felt I just cannot let these people down. I cannot let my people down. I cannot let down those who, in the face of a lot of criticism, publicly stood up, supported me, stood for local council elections, gave me money, put leaflets through doors. And so I thought, you know what? I'm going to do the irrational thing. I'm going to do the impossible thing. I am going to fight a parliamentary seat. I'm going to take back the leadership of Reform UK. I'm going, for the next 5 weeks, to throw myself into complete and utter lunacy. And here I am. And as David Bull said earlier, we are doing amazingly well. The establishment are terrified. The Conservatives are terrified. Labour are not scared yet. But by the time I finish with them, they will be. So the narrative starts, well, Reform UK, they might win, they might win a lot of votes, but they won't win any seats. Well, that narrative has shifted today. Rishi Sunak now says Reform won't win many seats. So they acknowledge that we are going to win seats. And I sense there is a momentum behind us. I sense we are the conversation at breakfast tables around the country, in bingo halls, wherever else you may go. And I know this from my campaigning here in this constituency. I've already been, and this is, not easy. There's a great degree of self-sacrifice in campaigning. I've so far been to 48 pubs in the constituency. Just to... And you walk into a pub and they say, oh my goodness, we were just talking about you. Something, folks, is going on. Something very exciting is going on. We are even or just ahead of the Conservative Party in the opinion polls, as David said earlier. We will, I'm quite confident, by early next week, clearly be in second place in the opinion polls. Clearly be. And this matters. And it matters because for democracy to function, you need to have opposition. There needs to be a counter-argument. The Conservative Party are incapable. They may be in opposition, but they won't be the opposition. I mean, they've spent the last 4 years fighting among themselves. They've spent more time bickering than they have actually getting on and running the country. And they're split down the middle. I mean, look at it. Suella Braverman on one wing of the party, proposing openly to me, proposing political marriage to me live on air. And then on the other hand, Call Me Dave, being totally abusive and saying Mr. Farage should never be allowed anywhere near the Conservative Party. Well, Lord Cameron, I have to say thank you for that. I would not want to be associated in any way with a party that you were a part of. So, my object is for us to become the voice of opposition. My object is for us to become in Parliament and in the country the voice that stands up for what I still believe to be the silent majority who are unrepresented by the parties in Westminster? Are you part of that silent majority? And what we must do is establish that bridgehead in Parliament. And we're going to do it. We are going to do it. Be in no doubt. And then spend the next 5 years getting ready to fight the 2029 general election as a party that believes it can win that general election and put our party, put our country back on track. That's the aim. This is not a short-term commando raid from me. This is a major commitment of my life. And it's taken a lot to decide, and I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, and with your help, we will once again change the future of British history. And Clacton, of course, Clacton has a very special place in my heart because it was in 2014 when the then Conservative Member of Parliament in this constituency, Douglas Carswell, came to see me. He said, I cannot staying with the Conservative Party. Literally, our Parliament has been neutered. The big decisions that affect our lives are being taken in Brussels. I want to join UKIP. But he didn't cross the floor cynically like the others do. No, we agreed that he would resign as a Conservative, join UKIP, and that very day resign his seat as the Member of Parliament for Clacton and put himself up for re-election, which happened in that by-election in late 2014. Can you think, in modern times, of a more principled, honest and decent act than what Carswell did back in 2014? Amazing. And we won the by-election. We won the by-election, and after the Clacton by-election, there was no way that Cameron, if he won the 2015 election, could backtrack on a referendum. Clacton actually holds a very, very special place, not just in my heart for that, but actually in terms of the history of this country. And so special has Clacton been that I came back here and campaigned in the 2015 general election. I came back here and campaigned in the 2016 referendum. I came back here and campaigned in the 2019 European elections. And just over a year ago, I did a live GB News show from Clacton. In fact, some people think I've been here so regularly that I'm actually a regular customer down at Spoons on the front, but it's not actually true. And what do I have to offer? I'll tell you what I have to offer. I'm a fighter. I'll tell you what I have to offer. I'm not afraid of anything or anyone. I've taken on the European Union. I've taken on the big political parties. And last year, I took on the big banks. And a good job too. So I'm a fighter. I'm a warrior. And as I say, I'm not afraid of anything. What I hope to be able to do, if I'm successful in this constituency on July the 4th, and by the way, the bookmakers' odds are moving heavily in our favour. There feels to me like there's momentum and a groundswell going on out there. It feels really good everywhere we go in the constituency. What I would hope to do as a national figure is to be able to bring to this constituency, which has been regarded, I think, as being at the end of the line, doesn't really matter, regarded perhaps by national government and perhaps even possibly by Essex County Council as not really mattering very much. So if you want someone who the authorities are scared of to fight your corner, I would argue I am the right man for that job. I really would. But I also want to fight for a fairer country. And by that I mean our proposal to raise the level at which people start paying tax to £20,000 a year is bold, brave and innovative. And it works because those on the lowest incomes will keep more money in their pocket. Those on benefits, now there are lots of people on benefits who don't want to be on benefits, but if they go to work and work more than 16 hours a week, they find themselves worse off than staying on benefits. It's a trap. It's mad. Lift that threshold to 20,000 people, make work pay, and a lot of people will go back to work, and then we won't need the levels of unskilled migration coming into our country. And for those who refuse to work, despite being offered jobs, well, that's just unfair, isn't it? It's unfair to the working population. It's unfair to people who get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and travel and do their jobs. If people on benefits won't take jobs, then I think the only thing to do properly is to cut their benefits. We can't have working people paying for people who won't work. And I will campaign, and I was the first person 4 years ago to go into the English Channel to video myself those boats coming, to predict that huge numbers would come. It is now over 140,000 people that have crossed the Channel since that time that I went out there. And Rishi can talk about Rwanda until the cows come home. But all the while we're subject to the European Court of Human Rights. Those planes will not go to Rwanda. And if Brexit was about us being a self-governing nation, then the time has come to leave the European Court of Human Rights and to re-establish ourselves as a proper sovereign nation. It would be the completion of the Brexit process. Folks, I believe in family, I believe in community, I believe in country. I am unashamedly patriotic. I believe in our people. I believe we have a magnificent history. I will stand up and fight against the poisoning of the minds of our kids at schools and universities. I will fight against identity politics. I don't want people divided up on the basis of their colour or their religion or their sexual preference. This is nonsense. It's divisive. It's wrong. Let's treat everybody equally before the law, and let's stop this nonsense of this diversity and inclusion agenda, which I think is splitting the country in half. So I've got a long track record, and I really do believe, actually, that we can be, at the same time, traditional and radical. Traditional in that we respect our past, and I have to say, what an honour it was for me to be able to help a businessman called Johnny Gallagher, and I helped him raise £100,000 so that we could send 17 World War II veterans who otherwise couldn't have afforded it to Normandy on the 6th of June. Which marks a rather strong comparison with our Prime Minister, I would suggest. And I was proud to do that. But also, when the patient is seriously ill, the solution is radical surgery. And our country needs radical surgery. A complete rethink in the way we fund public services. A totally different approach to law and order. There are far too many young men carrying knives in our country. A murder recently here. So let's be clear. If we treat everybody equally, regardless of class or race or ethnicity, let's give the police, let's order the police to use their powers of stop and search. Let's get knives off our streets. And, you know, how can it be? How can it be that you can go and nick up to 200 quid worth of stuff at a shop and not get prosecuted? Surely we've got to get back to sensible policing. We've got to get back to proper law and order. We've got to get back to education that teaches our kids the good and the bad sides of our history. Our institutions are rotten, they don't work. Our electoral system doesn't work. The House of Lords is an absolute abomination. Any of you can join. Oh, anyone here can join. Just give a political party 5 million quid and become a lord. I mean, how on earth in the 21st century is any of this happening? Now, just as in the past, with the People's Army that we built in UKIP and took through, I can't do any of these things unless you're prepared to help me. I can't do any of this unless you're prepared to do whatever you can do. Whether that's putting up a poster, delivering a leaflet, talking to your friends, giving us a bit of money, joining the party, whatever it may be, I can only succeed if you do your bit for me in return. So let me ask you. Put your hands up if you're prepared to help me. Well, that is absolutely amazing. It now feels like a Billy Graham meeting. But thank you. I've made that commitment to you. You've made that commitment to me. We're going to win this seat in Clacton. We're going to win many other seats around the country. And with your help, we will change the future of our country. Thank you. Now, hold your signs up. Hold your signs up. We're going to get a big group picture. Hold your signs up. I mustn't fall off the stage like Ian McClellan. I won't do that. There we are. 1 minute. Well, there isn't 1 minute. Right, stay there. We're going to get a great picky. Where do you want me? Okay, great stuff. Great stuff. Yeah. Great stuff. All right, good. Thank you very much indeed, everybody. Now that needs to go back, Stuart. Yeah, thank you. Now, the important thing, the advantage I have is that I'm a national figure. The advantage I have is I believe I can help by bringing investment into this area. The advantage I have is I can fight on your behalf with Essex County Council. The disadvantage I have is that as a party leader, I'm going to be incredibly busy and travelling all over the country. So, to be successful as a Member of Parliament for this constituency, I'm going to need some very, very good local people on the ground to help me make it work. So I have an announcement to make tonight. We have some councillors who are now, tonight, not just going to join me, but join Reform UK. They were elected as Conservatives, but they no longer recognise that party to be even vaguely what they thought it was when they were elected. And I want you please to welcome first Jeff Bray, Councillor for Little Clacton Ward, Chair of Tendring District Council in 21 and 22, former TDC Cabinet Member, former Vice Chair of Planning and Standards, former Chair and Vice Chair of the Clacton Conservative Association. Jeff Bray is coming out tonight. He's joining me. He's joining Reform. Please welcome him to the stage. Lovely, thank you very much. Grab a pew. Now, Jeff Bray is not on his own, because Peter Harris, who represents Wheeley and Tendring Ward, Chairman of Tendring District Council 2022 to 2023, long-standing member of the Planning Committee, former member of the Clacton Conservative Association, long-time friend of mine, Peter Harris, joins Reform UK tonight.
It's going all right, isn't it? It's going fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Well done. Richard Everett, who represents Frinton Ward, former chairman of the Clacton Conservative Association, long-standing member of the Planning Committee, and Richard tonight joins me and joins Reform UK. Really good. You better grab that one now. And last and by no means least, James Codling, elected as a Conservative in 2019 for the appropriately named then Blue House Ward. And he serves on the licensing committee, which I think is a very good thing personally. And he has overview of the Services and Resources Committee. And James Codling, too, joins me and joins Reform UK on this stage in this campaign tonight. Brilliant. Thank you very much indeed.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're going to walk in.
Fantastic.
Certainly if you have anything to do with it.
Fantastic. Right, there's now going to be, and wow, isn't that pretty cool? And I reckon this will be happening before long all over the country, because the party for which these guys were elected now stands for nothing. It serves no purpose. It'll be incapable of standing up and fighting for the rights of the people of this country against what's going to be a very weak Labour government. We will now proceed to questions, so I'm going to call Dr. David Bull, our chairman, back onto the stage, and we'll take your questions and do our very best. There'll be a short intermission, but no time yet for ice cream.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the raffle. Oh, no, sorry. Right, so some of you have submitted questions. Thank you very much indeed for these. This is from Stephen. What are your thoughts on nuclear energy, and why have we not done it yet? A brilliant question in terms of energy security.
Yeah, well, our contract with the people that we launched yesterday, and by the way, I didn't call it a manifesto, because the word association with manifesto is lie. So we called it a contract. Look, wind farms, solar farms, if these things can work without subsidy, if these things can work without lumping money onto everybody's electricity bill, if these things can work in providing regular energy, then I'm all for it. But they don't tick any of those boxes. They produce intermittent, expensive energy. Nuclear energy produces constant, 24/7 base load power. And yes, it's expensive to decommission. And yes, there are some risks associated with it. But Rolls-Royce, think about nuclear submarines. Every submarine has its own little nuclear reactor in the back. It works. It's amazing. And they're now producing what are called SMRs, small modular reactors. And I believe we must go, as the French did many years ago. I mean, look, folks, the French do get some things right. Well, I'll tell you what, their lunches are pretty good, though, aren't they? And their wine. Yeah. Oh, this is like Monty Python. What did the Romans ever do for us? Small modular reactors that are being produced by Rolls-Royce. I think that is the best way to ensure we've got consistent energy supply for years to come. At the same time, of course, it doesn't produce any carbon either. So we're very, very pro that. And as I say, if in years to come we get technology that says that the North Sea wind farms can produce hydrogen that would then be used, then maybe it becomes viable. But right at the moment, I cannot see the point of ripping up large parts of Essex and Suffolk with 60-metre wide, massive pylons to produce a form of energy that doesn't always work.
Moving on to the next question. This is from Dave. What is your position on ULEZ?
Don't start me on that. So who was it that first agreed that ULEZ should go right out to the outer edges of Greater London? one Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson approved this. And now Sadiq Khan has implemented it. And this just shows you some of the madness with our pursuit of net zero. Who pays ULEZ? The elderly and those on the lowest incomes who can't afford new cars. If I drive in to Greater London, I don't pay the ULEZ charge because I've got a relatively new car. But people who are elderly, who can't afford a new car, get charged £12.50 every single day. And the worry is it isn't just Khan in London that's done it. That maniac, Drakeford in Wales, introduced a 20-mile-per-hour speed limit everywhere in Wales. And I was there yesterday. It's absolutely stone bonkers. But the cat's out of the bag. Actually, whether they're Tory or Labour, they want to control your lives. They want to take away from you choices that you should be able to make for yourself. And where they're really going is road pricing. They want to charge us for every mile that we drive. They want to put a black box in every car that we have. And I say, the hell with it, and I will fight like crazy against yet more restrictions on driving, yet more restrictions on our life. I've just about had enough of it. And no, I have.
Yeah, I agree.
No, I have.
I don't think you should have sat down, Nigel. Matthew, very quick question. Will Reform pull out of the ECHR?
Yes.
Yes. Right. Hillary, wherever you are, thank you for this. What is Nigel's plans for the lowest state pension in Europe?
Well, there is a big unfairness in pensions, of course. There is this cliff edge. You know, before 2017, if you reached the pension age before then, you're better off than if you did after 2017. That's unfair. There's a big waspy woman campaign as well, but I fear that's not going to get corrected in the short term. But there should be pensions equality, and there's not. My other worry about pensions is that a lot of people who've got the old age pension, you know, have a small private pension from their years at work or years in the army or whatever it is. And because all the tax thresholds have been frozen, you're now finding huge numbers of pensioners who aren't very well off being dragged into the taxation system. And again, that's why raising the threshold to £20,000 a year would help those pensioners as well. But we have to face one thing. Yeah. We have to face one hard fact that nobody wants to talk about in this election. The country is skint. Our national debt has gone up to £2.7 trillion. It's almost treble what it was when the Conservatives took power. And the interest we pay on that is now £90 billion a year. It's exactly the same as the education budget, which is ironic because it's those youngsters who'll be paying this bill back, frankly, for the rest of their working lives. We need to be more honest about how much trouble we're in financially. Far more honest. Tory, Labour don't even want to talk about it. They have petty arguments. Are you going to put taxes up? Are you going to put taxes up? Not discussing the big picture. When you're in this much trouble, the only way out is to promote growth, economic growth. But economic growth doesn't come from half a dozen big multinational companies. Economic growth comes from millions of men and women setting up their own businesses, acting as sole traders, taking a chance. People who get no sick pay, people who get no holiday pay, but they take a risk and run their businesses. And what have we done to them? We put corporation tax up on them by 30% last year. We put IR35 rules in, making it almost impossible for many people to be self-employed. We have a VAT threshold, which is way too low for most businesses. And what we want to do, and I run small businesses myself, we will be on the side of the little man and the little woman who want to do their thing, and if they're freed up to go and do what they're good at, to make money, we will get economic growth. If we don't, at some point in the next decade, we will genuinely face cuts in pensions, cuts in everything. That is how much trouble we're in. And I'm not frightened to tell you the truth. That is where we are. Nobody else dares talk about it. We need economic growth, and it's the small businesses, it's the shopkeepers, those people that Napoleon hated. That is what we have to do to get this country back on track. And I will fight, not just in Parliament, for legislation on small businesses, but I will fight for men and women in this constituency who are having agonies from the quangos and the regulatory authorities. I will fight like hell on their behalf. I really, truly will.
Nigel, we have said repeatedly this is the immigration election. William reiterates that sentiment, saying there is no agreement with France. How do we turn back the boats? I think we've spent 500 million quid on France, and very little has changed. 11,400 people so far, I believe, this year.
That was yesterday's figure. There's another 800,
yes,
another 800 today. He's always had a date, David. You know, no, honestly, leave ECHR. Make it clear, as the Australians did a decade ago, that anyone that comes via this route will never be granted refugee status, and if necessary, pick up and take back. But we shouldn't need to pick up and take back. People won't come if they know they're not allowed to stay. And it's a funny thing. In the last year of the Labour government, 09 to 10, we deported 45,000 people who were here illegally. We used to, as a matter of practice, deport people who came illegally. We've lost our nerve. We've lost our self-confidence. We've allowed this activist court in Strasbourg to take things over. You will never stop the boats if you stay part of that court, and we're going to deal with it, I promise you.
I think we've got time just for a couple more. This is from Dr. Raymond Davies. Nigel, what is the one thing you see you can impact on this constituency directly? What is that one pressing issue?
To give it a national figure and a national voice. And I will not make promises that I can't guarantee to deliver. I'm not that sort of person. But what I will do my damnedest to do, and there are already some very fine engineering companies, manufacturers in this constituency, there just aren't enough of them. And average incomes, particularly for younger people, are just too low in the Clacton area. And that's why many of them, in the end, decide to leave. I will do my damnedest to bring investment into this area that creates training and well-paid jobs. That is my ambition for this constituency. I will do my best to make it happen. One more.
Final question. This is, I'm sure, on everyone's minds. Helen says, after being named sexiest politician in the United Kingdom, do you think if you are ever elected Prime Minister, will you be the sexiest Prime Minister in history?
Well, so, I think this goes back to my time in the jungle. Now, because when you're in the jungle, you don't know what's being written and what's being said. But for some, I mean, when you go into the shower, well, what do you do when you go in? I mean, you take your clothes off, don't you? Well, apparently there was some camp regulation that said, because of all the fixed cameras, that when you went into the shower, you had to keep your underwear on. Well, I didn't know about that. Actually, do you want the truth?
Yeah.
I did know about that. So, this may be what won me this award, this poll yesterday. I did ask Dan, my press guy, I said, who was it? What company, what forum has voted for me as the sexiest political leader? And it's called illicitliaisons.com. There you are.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for your time and attention and for being here. Please put your hands together for Jeff Bray, Peter Harris, Richard Everett and James Codling.
Brilliant.
And huge thanks, and please put your hands together for, hopefully, the next Member of Parliament for Clacton, Nigel Farage.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. What a better again. David there. Those guys there. Look at that. Get a nice picture. Okay. Yeah. All good. That's it.